The HOA thought they could bully me with paperwork, late-night letters, and threats that sounded official. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't just another homeowner. I was the county's chief of police. And when they crossed the line, they weren't just picking a fight with a neighbor. They were stepping into a battlefield where the law was on my side, and I knew exactly how to use it. Before I take you through the whole story, do me a favor. Comment which country you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story travels. It started with Nancy Grant, our HOA president. She strutted around the cul-de-sac like she was running her own mini-government. Clipboard always in hand, sunglasses perched like she was a secret agent. She would wave violation slips at neighbors, writing them up for leaving trash cans out, an hour too long or for grass that looked half an inch too tall. She believed those HOA bylaws gave her the same power as federal law, and she flaunted it. One morning, she stormed up to my property and waved a bright yellow slip in my face. She claimed my pickup truck was illegally parked in my own driveway. The truck was registered, inspected, tagged, and fully compliant with California Vehicle Code Section 22507.2, which explicitly states HOAs cannot override municipal parking laws. I pointed that out to her, but she smirked and said, "Our rules are above city codes. Pay the fine or face further action." I refused. That's when the intimidation started. The following week, she returned, this time with two men in tucked-in, polo shirts, cheap sunglasses, and laminated badges clipped to their belts. They introduced themselves as HOA compliance officers. Their voices dripped with fake authority. One even leaned forward and said, "Sir, if you don't cooperate, we'll have to arrest you under HOA code." That was my first big red flag. Arrest? HOAs don't have arrest powers. Only sworn officers do, under Penal Code 830.1. Everything about them screamed amateur hour. Their badges looked like they'd been printed at an office supply store, and their rehearsed lines sounded like a bad TV script. I kept my cool. What they didn't know was that I had my body cam running the whole time. I played dumb, asking them to repeat their so-called laws, letting them dig their hole deeper with every lie. Inside, I was already planning my next move. If Nancy wanted to play power games, I was about to show her what real law enforcement looked like. The next day, things escalated hard. A beat-up SUV with flashing amber lights pulled into my driveway. The same two compliance officers climbed out, this time armed with plastic zip ties. They puffed up their chests, strutting, like they were about to haul me off to jail. One of them barked, "Sir, under HOA enforcement, you are under arrest for failure to comply. Step aside, or we will use force." I almost laughed out loud. HOA enforcement? That's not a thing. What they didn't realize was that under Title 18, U.S. Code 92, impersonating an officer is a felony offense. They weren't just bluffing anymore. They were breaking federal law on my property in broad daylight. I raised my hand slowly, pretending to comply. All right, I said, stepping down from the porch with a calm smile. The moment the first guy reached for my training took over. I grabbed his wrist, twisted, and dropped him to the ground so fast his brain hadn't caught up. His knee buckled with a pop, and he screamed in pain. The second rushed me, zip ties out, trying to play hero. I shifted, hooked his ankle, and sent him crashing face first onto the pavement. His knee slammed hard, dislocating instantly. Both men were on the ground now, groaning, begging me not to hurt them again. I didn't have to. They were finished. I pulled out my real badge, the one issued by the county sheriff's office, and crouched next to them. You boys just impersonated peace officers, trespassed on private property, and attempted unlawful detention. That means you're looking at real prison time. Their faces drained of color. Whatever fake authority they thought they had vanished in an instant. I radioed dispatch, and within minutes, 2 of my actual officers arrived. Lights flashing, sirens blaring, guns drawn. They secured the imposters, read them their rights, and shoved them into the back of a squad car. Neighbors peeked through, curtains, whispering. This wasn't petty HOA drama anymore. This was a criminal takedown, right in the middle of Maplewood Drive. But the story didn't end there. Because those two idiots weren't freelancing. Someone had sent them. And I already knew who. At the station, the fake officers cracked almost immediately. Under questioning, one admitted they had been promised cash by none other than Nancy Grant herself. She told them to teach me a lesson and scare me into obedience. It all made sense. Last year, I fined her son for reckless driving in a school zone. Ever since, she'd been itching for revenge, and now she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The charges stacked up quickly: impersonating a peace officer, conspiracy, trespassing, and attempted unlawful detention. Each one carried years in prison. And because Nancy had orchestrated it, she wasn't going to dodge accountability by hiding behind HOA bylaws. When we brought her in, she tried her usual smug routine. "This is a misunderstanding. I was only protecting the neighborhood." I slid the evidence file across the table. Body cam footage, fake badges, sworn statements. Her smirk disappeared. "This isn't a misunderstanding, Nancy," I said flatly. "This is a criminal conspiracy, and you're finished." Her attorney scrambled to argue, but the case was airtight. Within hours, Nancy was booked and charged. The next day, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Neighbors who had once been terrified of her now stood tall. They voted unanimously to strip her of her position, fine her for legal costs, and ban her from holding any HOA office ever again. As for the two imposters, they were headed to prison, limping on busted knees, probably wondering why they ever agreed to cross me. That night, I stood on my porch with a cup of coffee while patrol. Cars idled down the street. The air felt different, lighter, freer. My neighbors smiled when they walked by, no longer glancing nervously over their shoulders. Nancy's reign was over. I wasn't just their neighbor anymore. I was their chief of police. And the HOA had learned the hard way. When you weaponize fake authority against the wrong man, you don't just lose your power. You lose everything.